Earl Tobias paid $13 for a strip of land no one else wanted, and 4 locals laughed when he raised his hand. 50 years later, a $40 million project sat frozen because of it. But why would anyone need a strip only 12 feet wide? The call came at 6:42 on a Tuesday, and the lawyer's voice was shaking. "We can't close. The whole project is frozen. There's an old man with a deed, and he won't talk to us." Marcus Webb laughed into the phone. $40 million, 11 buildings, a signed city vote. "Then offer him money," he said. "Old men love money. We tried. He doesn't want it." Marcus stopped laughing. The man freezing his project was named Earl Tobias, and the story started 50 years before that phone call in a county hall that smelled like dust and burnt coffee. October 1972. There was a folding table at the front of the room. A coffee pot sat on a side table, half empty, going cold. 4 locals leaned against the back wall to watch. Nobody came to these auctions to buy. They came to see who would. The county was selling junk parcels that day. Land nobody farmed, land too wet, too thin, too useless to tax. The auctioneer read the lots fast, eager to go home. Then he reached Lot 19, a strip of land, 12 feet wide, half a mile long. It ran along the back of a wide stretch of empty fields, and on the map it looked like a pencil line someone forgot to erase. "Lot 19, the auctioneer said. "Who'll start it?" Silence. Earl Tobias raised one finger. He was 24. He wore a brown coat and stood near the door like he might leave any second. $13, Earl said. A man near the front turned around. His name was Marcus Webb's father, Howard Webb, and Howard owned half the good land in the county. He looked at Earl the way you look at a kid who wandered into the wrong room. $13, Howard repeated. Then he laughed, loud, the kind of laugh that wants the whole room to join in. A few did. "Son," Howard said, "you know what that is? That's a ditch. You're buying a ditch." Earl said nothing. He kept his finger up. "Going once," the auctioneer said, smiling now too. "Going twice, sold." To the young man in the brown coat. $13. Earl walked to the folding table. He signed his name slow and careful. The clerk slid him a receipt, thin yellow paper, the ink already smearing. Earl folded it into quarters. He put it in the inside pocket of his coat, the one over his heart, and he buttoned the coat shut. Howard Webb was still grinning. "Hey," he called out. "What are you going to grow on a ditch, boy? Mud?" The locals chuckled again. Earl looked at Howard. He did not smile. He did not frown. He just looked the way a man looks at weather he already knew was coming. "Have a good day, mister." "Webb," he said. Then he walked out. The 4 locals forgot about Lot 19 by supper. Howard forgot about it by the time he reached his truck. To everyone in that room, a man had wasted $13 on a strip of mud, and that was the whole story. It was not the whole story. Earl drove home in a truck that rattled at every stop sign. His wife, Della, was on the porch shelling beans into a coffee cup. She watched him climb the steps. "Well," she asked. "Got it," Earl said. "How much?" $13. Della set the cup down. She had been married to Earl for 2 years, and she had learned that he spoke the most when he said the least. "They laugh at you some. You let them? Cost me nothing to let them." He sat down beside her. He pulled the receipt from his coat and unfolded it on his knee, smoothing the creases flat with one thumb. Lot 19, 12 feet by half a mile, his name at the bottom. Della leaned over to read it. "What's so special about a ditch, Earl?" Earl looked out at the road. The sun was sliding behind the tree line, and the fields beyond his new strip of land, empty and quiet, worth nothing, wanted by no one. "For now, nothing," he said. Yet he folded the receipt again, 4 neat squares, back into the pocket over his heart. Della watched him do it. She did not ask again. She had a feeling, the way you get a feeling about a man, that he was holding something he wasn't ready to set down. She was right. Because Earl had spent 3 months at the county office before that auction. He had read old maps. He had read older filings, the kind stored in boxes nobody opened. And somewhere in those boxes, he had found one piece of paper that explained exactly why a 12-foot ditch might one day be worth more than every acre around it. He had not told Della. He had not told anyone. He sat on the porch beside his wife while the light went gold, then gray, then gone, and he held a secret folded in 4 squares against his chest, a strip of mud. A laugh from a rich man. $13. And Earl Tobias knew something that nobody else in that auction room would understand for 50 more years. He just didn't say what. Before we go further, tap that subscribe button right now, because the moment Earl figured out what that ditch really was, even he had to sit down. You won't believe what he found buried in those county files. March 1972. 7 months before the auction, a reading room in the county library, long tables, green lamps, the smell of old paper. Earl Tobias sat alone with a map the size of a tablecloth. He came on Tuesdays. He told Della he was running errands, and he was sort of. The errand was sitting in a hard chair for 3 hours reading things no one had touched in years. He started with the new maps, the ones showing where the county wanted to grow. Big empty fields east of town, 280 acres of them, flat and dry and perfect for building. Someday somebody would want that land. Earl could see it. But you can't build on land you can't reach. So Earl pulled the road maps. He traced every line in and out of those 280 acres. There was only one real way in, a county road that ran along the south edge, wide enough for trucks, already paved. He followed that road on the map with one finger. Then the road stopped. It just ended midfield, at a thin line marked in faded pencil. The line had a number. Earl wrote it in his notebook. Then he went looking for what that number meant. It took him 4 Tuesdays. He found it in a box marked 1931. A road plan. The county had once meant to extend that road straight through the fields. They surveyed it. They filed it. They gave it a name and a number and a strip of land 12 feet wide and half a mile long. Then the money ran out and they shelved the whole thing. But here was the part that made Earl sit very still. They never dissolved it. The strip was still on the books, still its own parcel, still separate from the fields around it. The county had forgotten it, but forgetting a thing does not erase it. On paper, that 12-foot strip was the legal spine the whole road had been built around, and it had never been folded back into the land beside it. Whoever owned that strip owned the only path the road could ever take. Earl read it 3 times to be sure. Then he closed the box. He sat at the kitchen table that night with a blank sheet of paper and drew the whole thing by hand. The 280 acres, the one paved road, the gap, and the thin strip that filled it. Della came in to put the kettle on. She looked over his shoulder at the drawing. What's that line? A road that isn't there yet. She waited. He didn't say more. The kettle began to tick on the stove. You gonna buy it? Going to try. She poured the water. She didn't push. She had married a quiet man on purpose. Earl bought the strip that October for $13. And then he waited. He watched the fields the way some men watch the sky for rain. Every few months he drove out to pass the 280 acres just to look. For years nothing. Grass, crows, a broken fence. Then slowly things began to move. Survey flags first. Little orange ribbons tied to stakes pushed into the dirt at the edge of the fields. Earl wrote the date in the notebook Della had given him one Christmas, then tire tracks, fresh ones, heavy trucks. Then the buyers came, but not by their own names. Earl read the county filings the same way he always had, and he saw the fields being bought up in pieces by companies with names that meant nothing. Hollow names, empty shell names. One bought 40 acres, another bought 60, another bought the rest. He wrote each one in the notebook, same handwriting, same patience. He saw what they were doing. Somebody big was buying the whole 280 acres quietly, one shell at a time, so the price wouldn't jump. Somebody who wanted to build, somebody who would need a road. Earl drove home and sat at the kitchen table and opened his hand-drawn map one more time. The fields were filling in now, parcel by parcel, all owned by the same hidden hand. All of it boxed in. All of it useless without one paved road through the middle. And the only ground that road could legally cross was 12 feet wide, half a mile long, and folded into 4 squares of yellow paper in Earl Tobias's coat pocket. He looked at the map for a long time. Then he closed the notebook. They'll come, he said to no one. The kettle was already cold. A black car pulled into Earl's gravel drive on a Saturday in spring, and a young man in a pressed shirt stepped out holding a clipboard like a shield. Earl was on the porch. He set his coffee cup down on the rail before he stood. Mr. Tobias, the young man called, smiling wide. Got a minute? I represent some folks interested in that little strip you own out east. Earl came down 1 step. Go ahead. We'd like to buy it, clean and simple. The man clicked his pen. $40,000. Cash, this week. $40,000 for a ditch a man bought for 13. Earl nodded slow, like he was thinking it over. He was not. No, thank you, he said. The smile flickered. Sir, that's well above any value. I'm sure it is. Thank you for driving out. Earl picked his coffee cup back up. The young man stood there a moment, then got in his car and left. Della opened the screen door behind him. How much? 40, and said no. She nodded and let the door swing shut. She had understood the strip mattered since the night he drew it on the kitchen table. She never once asked him to sell. Earl kept up the land the same as always. He drove out twice a year and mowed the strip himself, walking behind an old push mower in the heat. Every spring he paid the tax bill, $11, then $14, then $19 as the years rolled on. He paid it on the day it came. He kept the little markers at each end clear of weeds, so no one could ever say the line was lost. The world forgot the strip existed. Earl did not. The phone rang one evening 2 years later. A man from the county, voice smooth and certain. Mr. Tobias, we're looking at a road project out east. We'd want to acquire your parcel. The county's prepared to offer $90,000. That's kind, Earl said, but I'll keep it. Sir, the county can be very persistent about right-of-way. I'm sure, Earl said. Have a good night. He set the phone down tangential. Della looked up from her chair. 90? You ever going to tell me the number you're waiting for? Earl thought about it. Don't have one. I'm waiting for the right knock. She smiled and went back to her knitting. Their daughter Ruth had asked about the strip once, years before, when she was 12. They'd driven past it and she'd pointed out the window. Daddy, why do we own a ditch? Because someday it won't be a ditch. What'll it be? A door, Earl had said. And we'll own it. Ruth had laughed the way kids laugh at grown-up nonsense. Then she forgot about it, the way you forget a thing you don't yet need. Earl did not forget. Far across the county, in a glass building, things were not going well. A man slammed a folder on a conference table. Marcus Webb stood at the window, jaw tight, while a lawyer paced behind him. 280 acres, the lawyer said, and we can't move a shovel without that strip. We've offered, he won't sell. Then offer more, Marcus said. Everyone has a number. He doesn't seem to. Marcus turned from the window. Everyone does. A black sedan rolled up Earl's drive on a fall afternoon. A man in a three-piece suit stepped out with a leather briefcase. He asked to come in. Earl let him. They sat at the kitchen table. Della poured coffee. The man opened his briefcase and slid a single sheet across the table. Mr. Tobias, I represent the development group assembling the East Fields. I'll be direct. We're offering $400,000 for your parcel. $400,000. Earl looked at the number. Della stood by the stove, very still. Earl folded his hands on the table. No, he said. The lawyer blinked. Mr. Tobias, I don't think you understand the size of. I understand it fine, Earl said. More than you might think. Thank you for the coffee company. Della will see you out. The lawyer left his card. Earl set it under the sugar bowl and forgot it. 3 more years passed that way. The fields filled with stakes and fences and surveyors. The strip sat in the middle, 12 feet wide, mowed twice a year, taxes paid every spring. The offers stopped coming. Earl knew what that meant. It didn't mean they'd given up. It meant they were trying to go around him, in court, on paper, some other way. He waited for that, too. One quiet morning, the phone rang. Earl was at the table with his coffee. The number on the screen was one he didn't know. He looked at it for a long moment. Della watched him from the doorway. Earl reached for the phone. Mr. Tobias, this is a courtesy call, the lawyer said, fast and flat. The county is moving to void your claim. The parcel will be declared abandoned. We're prepared to offer $100,000 to settle before that happens. $100,000, down from $400. Earl almost smiled. You're offering me less to scare me, Earl said. That's not a deal. That's a bluff. It's a generous. Earl hung up before the man finished. He sat with his cold coffee a moment. Then he picked the phone back up and called his daughter. Ruth, he said, I think I need a lawyer in the family now. Ruth Tobias had grown up to be a property attorney. She drove down that weekend. She spread everything across the kitchen table. The original 1931 road filing, the deed from 1972, Earl's notebook with 50 years of dates, and a thick stack of tax receipts every single year, paid every spring. She read in silence for a long time. The kettle ticked on the stove, then she looked up. Dad, she said, the county never dissolved this corridor, and they taxed you on it every year for 50 years. You can't tax land and then call it abandoned. They've been proving it's yours the whole time. I know, Earl said. You knew in 1972? I had a feeling. Ruth made the call back to the developer's lawyer herself. Her voice was calm and even. My father declines your offer, she said. We'll see you at the hearing. The hearing was short. The county's lawyers argued the strip was forgotten land, unused, abandoned, fair to absorb into the project. They talked for 20 minutes. They had charts. Then Ruth stood. She placed 3 documents on the table, one at a time. The 1931 resolution creating this parcel, she said, never dissolved. She set down the second. The county's own decision to shelve the road, it removed the project, it never removed the land. She set down the third, the tax records 50 years thick. And every year since, the county sent my father a tax bill for this parcel. He paid everyone. You cannot collect tax on land for 50 years and call it abandoned in the same breath. The room went quiet. Ruth looked at the judge. The county already decided the strip exists. They've been cashing the checks. The judge read for less than a minute. The parcel is valid, he said. Owned free and clear by Earl Tobias. Claim denied. Marcus Webb's lawyer was already reaching for his phone. What came next was not a courtroom thing. It was a kitchen table thing. The developers wanted to buy the strip outright, one big check, be done. Ruth told them no. My father isn't selling, she said. He's leasing. You want a road across his land, you pay for it. Every month. Forever. The lawyer pushed back once. Ruth held. He pushed back twice. Ruth held. He accepted every term. A permanent easement. The development could build its road. In exchange, Earl Tobias would be paid every month for the rest of his life, the amount rising a little each year to match the cost of living and the payments passing to Ruth after him. $40 million in buildings resting on 12 feet of mowed grass. Ruth called her father with the news. It's done, Dad. They signed everything. Good girl, Earl said. That was all. Della, who had trusted him for 50 years without ever asking why, set the cup down, smiled, and put the kettle on. The signing happened at the county clerk's office on a Thursday. Earl wore the same kind of brown he'd worn to the auction. He signed his name slow and careful, the way he always had. Then he walked out to his truck. He sat behind the wheel and reached into his coat pocket. The receipt was still there, folded in 4 squares, soft and yellow and worn at the creases after all these years. He took out the notebook Della had given him. He turned to the last page. He wrote one line, bought a door for $13, kept it 50 years. Then he closed the notebook and drove home. Marcus Webb read about the agreement in the local paper a week later. A small story, back pages. He set the paper down and said nothing. There was nothing to say. And the few old men still around who had been at that auction in 1972, the ones who laughed, heard about it at the diner and went quiet over their eggs. Some men buy land to use it. Earl Tobias bought a single line on a map and waited 50 years for the world to need it. So here's the question. If you'd been Earl, would you have grabbed the $400,000 the day it sat on your kitchen table? Or held out for the monthly deal that pays your family forever? Tell me below. And if Earl earned it, you know what to do with that like button.